Well, hello. All right. Know what time it is? We're going to look over last week on my training. I think I last updated you guys is, I remember I was doing a cut. I was on a diet break for 4 weeks. I'm now, I think, nearing the end of the second week of cutting again. So how it works is cut for a while, diet break to kind of reset diet fatigue, and then more cutting. So that's where I am. I'm going to go over with you this week of training. So here we go. This is on the Friday after work, after all my training. For the moment during my cut, I'm typically training Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. It's just how it works around work and family. It's the short version. All right. We're going to start with Monday, but preface before I get into this. How I work it is because of how the slots I have available to train with are often limited for reasons, part of which is by the time I'm done with work, I have to be in bed by a certain time, so I only have so long. So I need to be able to finish up training to get home, do anything else I have to do at home, and then be able to wind down so I can sleep properly because I sleep during the day, which is already difficult enough to sleep during. So definitely want to make sure I have time to wind down. So for Monday, I try to limit my session to an hour. Also Tuesday after work, I don't have the time crunch, but it's after my longest night, or one of the longest nights, so I'm more tired and I don't want to be training as long, and it's tougher to be properly fed and managing food and hydration. Also, unlimited calories is more difficult. So an hour-long session, I can handle that fasted, so I limit that to an hour as well. My third session, which is typically Thursday morning, after my shortest shift at work, is the longest session, which I typically limit to 2 hours because I can more easily be well fed going into that session. So that equates to 4 hours of training every week for the moment over 3 days. And that gets what I need, because the primary purpose of a cut is to make sure at a minimum you are not losing muscle. If you can push progress, it's great. I still strive to do that, but at minimum, maintain muscle. So here we go. This most recent Monday, everything supersets, giant sets, and hopefully I'll have all relevant footage up on screen for you. I only record the first set of every exercise, every superset, every giant set, and I do everything by supersets and giant sets. So for Monday, for that hour, it's effectively a whole body session, a condensed whole body session, you could call it. My first superset was deadlifts and neck work. So regarding the deadlifts, in my recent video about earning optimal, I discuss how in some things I'm going back to the basics until I can personally experience the flaws of a lift, such as its poor stimulus to fatigue ratio and other things like that. Going back, earning the basics until they no longer work for you because you're strong enough. That's why I'm doing that with deadlifts, and definitely getting to the point where they're getting pretty rough. For this day, for my first set, I managed to do really well. New rep PR at the weight I was using, 355. However, for the second set, when I attempted it, I got lightheaded, couldn't lift the bar. After resting a minute or two, went to try it again, could barely get the bar off the ground. So, pulled some weight off, tried to do some RDLs, and every time I was in the last quarter of the rep, so near lockout, I felt what seemed in like the hamstring insertion going into my hip. Something felt really tight, like it was getting disproportionately pulled, so I was worried that in my fatigue state, I probably wasn't lifting correctly. So this day, even though I typically target 3 sets of everything, I did 1 set of deadlifts, 1 set of RDLs, and then I didn't do a third hip hinge for that. I just knew I wasn't pulling correctly. But supersetting with that, I did network with the harness for the extension and just a plate on my head for the flexion or the curl. Proper 3 sets of that, nothing too special there. For the next superset, what I did is the hammer strength seated chest press. This is one that I've really been enjoying for a few reasons. One, on this day when I want to limit my day to an hour, and I just spent a good chunk of time doing deadlifts, one of the most intense, like basic whole body movements you can do. So that can definitely take time recovering between sets, etc. So I can throw the plates on and immediately dive into my working set. Don't have to worry about warm up, cleanups, easy, quick. But also I've gotten into the groove to where I'm fighting for the plus ones. To summarize what that is, I'll try to remember to link to a video by Alex Leonidas. He does an excellent job of discussing what plus ones are. That's what I'm doing with this exercise now for chest. Supersetted with some standing calf raises. Multiple neat calf machines. At the gym today I did the standing calf raises for the short session. The third one, the third superset I did was the Peck deck, trying to mess around with how that's useful. It's recently been added to the gym, so trying to see how I can use it, when I should use it. What I discovered today is I feel if I do use the Peck deck, because it's mostly a contraction-based movement, so up near the top, when generally the most hypertrophic portion of a lift is the full stretch. If I use it in the future, I'm probably going to make it the very last chest exercise I do for the week, when my chest is already fatigued from having done chest movements all week. That I feel when it would be more useful, because as much as I tried to do stuff emphasizing the stretch, such as pausing in the stretch, very slow eccentric, and doing some partials after I reached failure on the concentric and reaching peak stretch, it just still didn't feel like the best use of my time, and a more stimulating, well, simultaneously also more fatiguing lift probably would have been more suitable. So I learned that this Monday, and we tried the Peck deck on the first day of the week. So probably not going to do that again. It didn't fit right. Supersetted that with some sit-ups on the glute ham raise machine. I started to weigh them. The reason I started adding weight, even though it's only 10 pounds, is for a good portion of ab exercises. Once I start getting close to and above 15 reps, it starts getting disproportionately difficult, but not because the abs are tiring, but because I start recruiting other muscles I don't want to train, and it's difficult to focus on actually doing the movement with the abs. So I noticed that, like my hip flexors, for instance, would start to get very fatigued and tired doing reps above 12. So just adding a little bit of weight, drops them back down to 12 or less, and then I can make sure I'm properly feeling the target muscles and initiating the movement with the abs. So that's what I did here. Short day, kept it either at or even beneath an hour. Typically, I've been managing to keep my sessions more times than not under the time limit. So that means actually less than 4 hours of training a week right now, and it's serving me great. So the next day, I call it my arm day, but because I include some good compounds in there, you could call it an arm-focused upper body session. So I opened up with my first, it was actually giant set, because 3 exercises. First off was close grip bench. Realized I started off with a little bit too much weight because of my fatigue, both from having hit 2 chest movements the day before and probably a little bit because of the diet. So I started out at 225 for my first set, and then went down to 205 and then 185. Probably just should have started at 205 and probably could have managed that for all 3 sets, but I wanted to do easy plate math and started a little heavier than I should have. Next, I would go into simple body weight, wide grip pull-ups, making sure to go down slowly and under control to save the shoulders, because this is one that I heard it from others. I think, once again, Alex Leonidas brought it up, and then after not listening and finding out through experience, learned that this very wide grip, if you just dive bomb and drop, it can not feel good on the shoulders. So it's especially important to go down slowly and under control to keep the shoulders healthy. And then, of course, after that, I did neck, similar as the day before. Same weights, same both extension and flexion. Nothing really too special there. Next giant set, did the dip machine, but I did it reversed, where I had to buckle in And that angle allowed me to better tilt torso and do arm angles in such a way that for the actual arm, hopefully the video shows it pretty good, it had a lot of similarities to other tricep extensions, but with greater stability and able to use more weight. So it turned a dip machine into a lot closer to a tricep isolation exercise. So I use that as my first tricep isolation exercise. Then I moved, same giant set, into preacher curls with the easy bar. What I'm trying to do here is be really tight and locked in around the preacher bench, and then go down slow and under control, and then try to explode up as much as possible. Trying to keep everything tight and focusing on, well, the arms, on the biceps for the movement. Then after that, I would go to do some seated calf raises. Nothing special here. I think I mentioned in my calf video a while ago that for seated calf raises, because of how the safeties are set, I can't do lots of past failure stuff. So it's all about emphasizing the contraction for seated calf raises, whereas opposed to any type of standing or fixed leg, straight leg calf raise, I'm able to go past failure because the safeties are beneath where I set the weight. So I can just go down and I'm done. Can't do that with seated, but can still get close to failure. My third and final giant set for that day was some seated easy bar French presses. I'm learning, I finally decided to try it. I used to do standing with the dumbbell, but I'm learning that being able to do seated and with the bar like that, it allows me to use less weight while getting a much better stretch, which is the purpose of doing this, to stretch out an overhead extension. The big purpose of that is to stretch out the long head of the triceps. So this allows me to go down slow and under control, get that stretch, pause, and then go back up. Amazing. And then with the same bar, would just stand up and do some reverse curls. Not only will that still hit the bicep a little bit more, but also work some of the forearm. I believe it's both the radiobrachialis, if I'm remembering everything correctly, in the forearm, along with some brachialis, which is underneath the bicep, if I'm remembering all my stuff correctly. And after that, I just jumped onto some decline sit-ups. How I'm doing my ab work throughout the week is at the beginning of the week, I do what feels like the toughest variation. The next day, I do a slightly easier variation since my abs are tired from the day before. And then for my third day, my full body one on Thursday morning, I'll be doing a variation that doesn't need the hip flexors and quads as stabilizers in the same way, because I will have been hitting legs that day. So that would have made that very difficult, and the abs would not have been the point of failure. So I do a variation that does not rely so much on those supporting muscles in the same way. It instead relies on different supporting muscles that also make it difficult. Anyway, that was the final giant set for Tuesday, my arm day, as I call it. Also limited to an hour. I think I might have gotten that one under an hour too this week. Finally, this is the big one, full body day, limit it to 2 hours right after work. Open up giant set. First, the pendulum squat. Very humbling if you do it correctly. I try to go all the way down, like thighs all the way, fully compressed against calves, as deep as I can. A single 45-pound plate on one side. So like barely anything on that thing. It is a very tough movement. Try to keep as slow and controlled as I can throughout the entire movement. Definitely rough. Purpose is to put all the emphasis on the quads. It's so easy for me to bring in hips and other muscles on hip hinges and squats that I have to be very specific in making sure I'm only using the quads as much as possible for quad exercises, which is why pendulum squat today, and on other days the super deep leg press are my two go-to quad movements. Next, I would move on to donkey calf raises, effectively just another type of fixed leg calf raise. I notice here, though, it enables me to get a even deeper and slightly significantly more painful stretch in the calves, but a little bit more prone to having my feet slip too. But nothing Too special there because it's fixed leg, and how it works is I'm able to go past failure and do like nasty intensity techniques because I just finished lowering the weight, hits the safeties, and I'm good. So there's no risk there. Final piece of the giant set, neck work again, the exact same things you saw the other 2 days. Second giant set, moved on to some upper body stuff to give the lower body a bit of a break. Started off with incline bench. Went slightly too heavy. Instead of opening with 175, feel I should have just done 165, and I probably would have been able to keep that through all 3 sets. Instead, on my 3rd set, I had to drop to 155 to stay within my target rep range, which I was trying to keep to 5 reps and above. Then I did some wide grip cable rows. So I don't know what the name of the handles are, but they're effectively like a neutral grip. Very wide. What I would try to do is on the eccentric, I would try to let my shoulders get drawn forward to stretch out the upper back further and then bring it all in. So an exaggerated range of motion. Then I did the ab exercise, which is the ab wheel. So because unlike the decline setup and the GHR setup, where with the GHR, the quads, but with both of them, the hip flexors are heavily involved in assisting and being part of the movement. Having hitting quads and the fact that I will be hitting adductors later in the workout meant that those don't mesh very well with today's workout. So I did the ab wheel, which that uses some triceps and the tiniest bit of upper chest, it feels like, and some shoulders and such, which are getting work in the incline bench. So there's really no winning, but it feels like the lesser of two evils as so far as what additional muscles are recruited while still allowing me to really hit the abs good. So giant set 3 was the leg adduction, hip adduction, whatever you call it. Nothing too special there. Try to go as wide as I can. I'm not sure if it's the widest the machine will go. If not, it's pretty close. Try to explode in on the concentric as explosively as I can, and then controlled slow eccentric back out. I try not to let the plates touch, so that way I always have tension the entire time. Then I would move on to the seated leg curl for the hamstrings. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this in a previous video, but I'll mention it here too. I curl up around the machine like that for 2 reasons. The first is so that as I'm trying to grind through the movement, I'm not pushing back on the seat, which would cause it to slip and go further back. It would lose its position and throw me off. And second, by trying to have more flex in the hips, I was hoping to get additional stretch in the hamstrings, so that way they would be worked even further. Because I hit all my floaters, as I call them. It's totally stole that name from Bald Omni-Man, Paris Butler. Floaters are for me like the abs, calves and stuff. And then the other small isolations you can typically throw in almost anywhere. So I hit those earlier in the session than I typically do. So my last 2 supersets were only supersets, 2 each. So after that quick leg superset, got to my last superset of the day, which is barrel press, also known as a fly press. It's a combination between a dumbbell bench press and a dumbbell fly. So see if I can, you're going to see what I'm doing on screen, and hopefully you'll be able to identify it. But if not, I'll try to describe here, and hopefully me waving around makes some sense. Typical dumbbell bench press, you're kind of just bringing it down relatively straight, where a fly, you're going out and stretching. The barrel press or fly press, you're combining. So you're keeping your arm still vertical, or relatively vertical, perpendicular to the floor as you're going out. So instead of a fly where you're going like this, instead of a bench where you're going like this, you're going out, keeping it up. This is not a great way to illustrate it now that I'm looking at the phone. But it's kind of like you're stretching out to give someone a big bear hug, and then you're trying to come up around. It's okay. I tried. If I can find a good video from one of the people I follow that explains it better, I'm going to pin it or here. It should pop up as a card or something. Smarter people than me. Bigger and stronger. That's what I did. Barrel press allows me to hit the chest without working the shoulders and triceps too much, which already got worked previously. And then finally, neutral hammer, well, I call it hammer, just a neutral grip lat pull down. Because previously, since I had done wide pull-ups the day before, so that's a wide vertical pull, and I had just done a wide horizontal pull this session, I wanted to do some neutral vertical pull. That hits more lats. Lats have never really been too much of a problem for me, but still wanted to do that since those muscles wouldn't have been nearly as toasted as the others. And that wrapped it up for me for the week. So that counted to actually, I think, a little bit less than 4 hours of training. Some things I am doing here, some patterns I am doing here, since I said I'm contemplating using this to create a template for a free program possibly. What I'm doing the first day of the week is sort of like my spearhead day, where the most important things that need to be emphasized the most are getting hit when you're freshest. The next day is a lot of arm work, so that exterior stuff that a lot of people is a weakness and they need to have dedicated time for. And then all the remaining volume that you didn't hit or that you need more of is all on the third day. So in a way, it's sort of like what it effectively is a short full body day, an upper body day, and an extended full body day. And what you're able to do is, depending on what your priorities are, the extended full body day is kind of meant to be relatively balanced overall. Then of course the arm day, you're both hitting the arms along with relevant compounds to maybe add a little bit extra volume, do some upper body work. But that first day, that spearhead day, is where the specialization comes in for the things you want to hit the most. Right now, I'm doing a lot of chest work because even though for right now I feel my chest is balanced for the look I'm going for, because I know it's not my favorite to train and I'm about to be specialized in other stuff, I don't want it to become a weak point. So I'm using my spearhead workout, opening up the week with hitting that a lot more. And once I'm done with my cut, I'm probably going to be focusing a lot on yoke training. So shoulders and like upper trap and upper backs will be heavily on that spearhead day. Most of my chest work will probably maybe a small amount possibly on the arm day for like weighted dips or something. And then anything else would be on the more balanced full body day. But that spearhead day will be for what I'm trying to specialize in. So that's kind of what I focus on. Specialization day, arm day, balanced full body day is the super short version of this template I'm running with. So those are all the things that come to mind for me right now. I want to see if I can hopefully throw this together relatively quickly. I don't know what relatively quickly means in this case, but there you go. Close this baby up. Make it all pretty. All right, thanks guys.